Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Me? Well, I'm praying for Christmas, to be honest. I'm tired now, boss. Dog tired. I could do with a few days away from work, away from this camera, and just, generally away. However, the show must go on, so we have pulled together another jam-packed episode for you today. Before we get to that, a couple of quick things. Good morning to all those watching over on YouTube, Twitter, or on demolitionnews.com itself. The ability to broadcast to our own website is a massive step forward and somewhat belated, I have to say. We've already seen a spike of views, which is great news. In addition to all of that, my new weekly column dropped first thing this morning. It's on the rather somber subject of demolition and construction industry suicides. I'd like to think that it's just the right degree of sad, angry, and outrage, but I'll leave you to judge. You can check that out using the link that I'm just about to post in the chat. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, post the link to that article, and get this show on the road. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. Right, before we begin, we have a newcomer. I think it's a newcomer in our midst. Good morning to Steve Williamson. Oh no, it's not. It's sorry, the penny just dropped. Morning, Steve. You're not a newcomer. You don't get the welcome confetti because you've been here before. Just juggling names in my head. It is Monday, the 5th of December, and as that remarkably persistent guy just said, welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the Plant Sector Representative Organisation, this time from the other side. CDI blows up a wind turbine over in Texas. Case and Leica combine to improve worker safety. We look back at the top 5 Liebherr machines that graced Bauma 2022. And we're going to take a look at the Bauma that most people never get to see. And we'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's see who among the rich and the shameless will be celebrating a birthday on this day of days. Happy birthday! And it's many happy returns to Army officer, the American Army officer, George Armstrong Custer, the one that made the last stand, and to the man who gave the world a talking mouse, animator Walt Disney. Happy birthday also to one of the founders of rock and roll, Little Richard, to tenor Jose Carreras, and to Haircut 100 bassist Les Neames. I'll tell you a story about me and Les Neames one of these days. Maybe. To ski jumper Eddie the Eagle Edwards, to politician Sajid Javid, and to snooker maverick Ronnie O'Sullivan. Many happy returns to them, one and all. I broke the journalistic code last week. I failed to offer you both sides of a story and instead just presented you with my take upon it. For that, I apologise, and I'm about to set the record straight. You might recall that I greeted the formation of the Plant Sector Representative Organisation with something of it fell well short of enthusiasm, let's just say that. Thankfully, my construction collective colleague Peter Haddock was on hand to provide an alternative view by speaking to one of the driving forces behind the PSRO. So by way of balance and fairness, here is that other view.
Hi, I'm Peter Haddock. I'm here at the Operator Skills Hub, and I'm with Aaron from Flannery, who heads up the training division here. Aaron, the Plant Sector Representative Organisation, oh, that's a mouthful, folks, has just been launched. And we have a big issue at the moment around competency, around understanding what ticket does what. It's so confusing for the industry right now. So this organisation has been put together with the CPA, with the CLA, so the Construction Leadership Council, Construction Plant Hire Association. Yep. But what does it all mean in real terms? You actually sit on the body,
right,
don't you?
So our understanding, like you say, as an employer, Flannery, as you've just said there, look, if you're coming into the industry, you're in the industry, you're an employer trying to put people out to work, there's multiple routes to competency, yeah? Yep. There's multiple card schemes. So, as the Construction Leadership Council requested, they're after what was called sector representative organisations, and the idea of that is, like you say, a host of trade bodies, so in particular for us, Construction Plant Hire Association, National Federation of Demolition Contractors, Federation of Piling Specialists, and there's more. Yep. Okay, have all got together and said, well, look, actually, if we form a sector representative organisation called the PSRO, so the Plant Sector Representative Organisation, if they create a competency framework, then hopefully all those certificating bodies the card schemes will work to one centralised format. So instead of having multiple routes to competency, yes, schemes might do things in a different way, but hopefully moving forward, okay, if people get behind the PSRO, employers buy into it, support those trade associations have helped set it up, what we should end up with is parity of delivery, okay, across the schemes. So it doesn't matter what card somebody holds, ultimately an employer will go, yeah, that person is competent. The individual coming into the industry can go, well, it doesn't matter which scheme I want to buy, where I want to spend my money. Again, I'm going to be able to go on that pathway to competency and hopefully get a sustainable job outcome from the back end of it.
And it is about sustainable jobs, and it is about making sure that we are a safe industry. We do an awful lot. We just talked today, folks, about safety, about plant interface and people interface, and basically all of the things we're trying to do to stop that. But the brains inside the machine is the operator, and therefore we need those individuals to be able to take on the task, often very difficult and challenging, of working in potentially confined spaces or in big machines on projects. Now, if we can make sure that this scheme works, we can tick all the boxes that are all linear, rather than some over here, some over there. Yes, there are specialisms, therefore, when you come into demolition, when you come onto the rail projects and stuff like that. So as you're sitting on this body now, what are you seeing, and why should people be supportive of it so that we can have change that is much needed?
So, look, if you look at it, the plant sector representative organisation, like you say, is made up of, there is a board representing all those bodies, associations, federations, that we're talking about. So if those individual members get behind those individual federations, membership organisations, they can drive the change that, like you say, some of them specialisms need. It will also hopefully long term put to bed all the issues we've had around multiple different card schemes, all trying to achieve different things at different times. So for me, look, there's a general apathy in industry around working groups and, let's say, collaborative working. Quite often, I say it multiple times, it's the same people around the same tables. But look, if people can come together and say, right, this is what the sector needs, whether it's a specialism or a generic skill, then ultimately what we do is we improve competency, we improve retention with the industry, we make it more attractive for people to come in. And there's a baseline that all these certificating bodies, the schemes, the training providers, etc., have to work to. For me, long term, that can only be a positive.
And for me, that can only be a positive as well. And remember, folks, when we're trying to bring people into this industry, we happen to be at a brilliant operator skills hub right here near the centre of Birmingham, really, just a stone's throw away. But we recognise that there are training bodies all over the country, and they need to pull in people locally into this industry so that we can have the people in the places that they're needed, but also we can have that mass coming together. And so when they're competent, when this organisation works through the things, and when we kind of get that almost mandated, and this is the big word for me, mandate this approach, so therefore everybody's got to be in the same level. Therefore we can make change, and ultimately the people are spending, individuals, a lot of money trying to get tickets, trying to get to the right thing, trying to do the right thing, trying to build a career, are going to be on the pathway that's right for them, and therefore they're going to be able to get long, sustainable, enjoyable and fun jobs, building great projects like we're just down the road from HS2. Good luck with it all. I look forward to hearing more about what's going on, and it's definitely a big step in the right direction, coming together, working hard to make sure that we have the best operators in the world. Thanks very much.
And you, Peter.
Personally, still not convinced. I like the idea of parity, but I'm still a believer that it is, as Aaron rightly said, they're the same people around the same tables. However, I do have a lot of respect for Aaron, knowing from his Keltbray days, and obviously he's now at Flannery. Maybe he's right to be in the middle, trying to drive the PSRO in the right direction rather than sitting on the outside, on the sidelines and criticising, like me. Let's have a chat about it afterwards. But in the meantime, let's roll this. It's tempting to think of wind power as something new. The truth is that modern wind turbines have been around for so long that some of them are now reaching the end of their practical working lives. A bit like myself, really. When they do, explosive demolition giant CDI is on hand to give them an appropriate send-off. Yeah, seems appropriate that these things are blown down, doesn't it? I was a bit hasty with the welcome confetti to a newcomer a bit earlier, welcoming back Steve Williamson, but Gary Taggart, I think Gary is actually a newcomer to the show. So, Gary, you get the very familiar welcome confetti. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let us know where you're watching from. Be interested to know, and glad to see you sporting the England badge there. England, France, eh? Am I looking forward to it? No.
The Miller GT series heralds a new era of unrivaled power and cutting-edge intelligent coupler technology, increasing job site safety, machine versatility, and productivity. It's the added versatility that you need at the value you can afford. To find out more, visit millergroundbreaking.com.
We love a bit of intercompany collaboration here on the Breakfast Show. So when we heard that the boffins of Case had got their heads together with the eggheads at Leica in the pursuit of greater worker safety, frankly, we were all over it.
We're here today to talk to you about how your precision certified Case construction equipment dealer can help your operators and your job site employees be more aware of their surroundings. You'll notice on my safety vest, I'm wearing a tag that is part of the P880 personal awareness system. Now, as I start walking closer to this machine that's outfitted with 3D solution, you'll notice my color starts to change on my tag.
So as you can see, as Richie walks up, he gets in the pre-programmed field, and when he gets close, it throws a warning, and that warning turns yellow. And now it sends an alert to Richie, so Richie's tag lights up yellow, lets him know he's within that warning field. On the operator screen, the operator actually sees the direction from where that person's coming, and then the distance from where that person that came into that pre-programmed field is. And then to get rid of that warning after he's acknowledged that somebody's entered his area, his working space, he just clicks acknowledge. So as you can see, when Richie walked into our pre-programmed stop field, it sends an alert to the screen for the operator to see where that person is within their stop field. I want Richie to talk to me, so to clear that alert, I'm just gonna hit acknowledge. Now that Richie knows that I have his awareness, he's gonna push his button so he can clear that alert, so now we can talk to each other. Each PA80 system has an anchor. That anchor is what judges the proximity between the machine and the person walking into the pre-programmed fields. It also communicates all that information back to the display for the operator to see. Case Construction, together with Leica Geosystems, is providing an easy solution with the PA80 to improve job site awareness between the operator and the workers on your construction site.
So for more information on this PA80 personal awareness solution, visit us online at casece.com or visit your local precision certified Case Construction equipment dealer.
It's a great system, and I do welcome any contribution to worker safety, but I still have my own personal doubts about any system that requires workers to remember to wear it or to charge it. Then again, as you probably know by now, I am a professional cynic. Liebherr pretty much transcends the Bauma exhibition. The company had the biggest stand featuring the biggest equipment. In fact, it had so much on display that our colleagues over at Diggers and Dozers have actually dedicated an entire top 5 film solely to the mighty Liebherr. And you might recognise the guy that's fronting it. Hi, I'm Mark Anthony from Diggers and Dozers, and this is the top 5 Liebherr machines at Bauma 2022. I have to say, I do agree with all of those entries, but I reckon there was actually scope for a top 10. Anyway, we're back at Bauma again immediately after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
As I just said, it is time to head back down Bavaria way yet again as we check out another Messer Munchen memory. Over a period of a week, more than 500,000 people poured through the gates of the Bauma exhibition centre. Those that attended will have been amazed by the scale of the stands, the engineering of the equipment, and just the sheer size of the exhibition itself. But there was another Bauma that few people got to see and experience, and that is Bauma After Dark. Looks even better by moonlight, doesn't it? Something should have happened then. It was this.
Sorry to interrupt the guy with the funny glasses, but if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button as it helps our channel. Or, better still, share this video with a friend or a colleague. Thank you. Right, back to Beardy.
Right, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'll roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. I will not be here tomorrow. Let me say it again. I will not be here tomorrow. I have a mission. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you after this for a good old chat about festive movies, about apprenticeships, and about suicide, and anything else that cares to drop into the conversation. Till then, let me roll this. How are we all doing this morning? That hasn't worked properly. That's better. That's more like the after show look that we are used to. How are we all doing this bright and sunny-ish day? Jim Turner was first off the mark this morning. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Ken Hatcher. Ken, while I've got your attention, please remind me of your postal address. I have your Caterpillar breaker model to send to you. It's in a box. Just to prove it, there is the box. It just doesn't have an address label on it, So please let me have your address when you get a moment. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Welcome back, Gary. Gary, as most of you are probably aware now, has just been to New York and looks like he had a fine old time as well. So thank you very much indeed for being here, Gary. It wasn't quite the same without you, I'm afraid. Let's have a look. Rattle through the chat here. Nick Drew is in the house. Morning, Nick. Thank you for being here. Steve Williamson, who was working next door to the Liebherr stand back at Bauma. Let's have a look. My question of the day was, if I can see it, question of the day, what is the greatest Christmas movie? Gary Muirhead has suggested Home Alone. Pretty good call. Ken Hatcher likes his action apparently. He reckons Bond movies. My personal preference, It's a Wonderful Life. I realise it's very old. I realise it's very out of date and stuff. that Christmas for me is not complete until Noddy Holder has said we have permission, and also when I've seen It's a Wonderful Life, which I should be doing at some point in the next couple of weeks. Dan Cullen's here. Morning, Dan. Yeah, Dan says a very good morning, morning, ladies and gentlemen, and Mark. Ladies, gentlemen, and Mark. Do you see me as somewhere between the two of those? Frankly, you wouldn't be the first. So we were talking about this PSRO last week, and we're talking about it again today, perhaps in a more reasonable light. But Steve Williamson says, I still think any operator that does an apprentice scheme should have to work on the ground with a digger to learn on the ground for the first year. Wouldn't argue with that one bit. We're going to come back to that in just a second, because we've got another of those really strange contradictions that this industry seems to throw up on a regular basis. Ken Hatcher agrees with that. Gary Taggart just said brilliant job. That was in relation to the Controlled Demolition Inc. blowing up that wind turbine over in Texas. Callum McIntosh is with us all the way from Bonnie, Scotland, and he is throwing into the movie mix Die Hard. Talk amongst yourselves about whether Die Hard is actually a Christmas movie. I realise it's set at Christmas. Is it a Christmas movie? I shall leave you to decide. Steve Williamson goes on to say, it's too easy for new starters to get a ticket and then wonder why there are incidents. Jobs aren't done right, machines are damaged. Need to push more on apprenticeship schemes. Never hear of them. So here, which follows on from what Steve said earlier, and also what Ken Hatcher is about to say, I think. In my column today, I've been talking about the fact that we have lots of demolition and construction companies who shout from the rooftops their mental health awareness, and then basically carry on exactly as they were, but with a mental health awareness badge on their LinkedIn profile. They don't change their working practices, they just crack on regardless. And I would say exactly the same thing about apprenticeships. I think most people in the industry believe that apprenticeships and all the mentoring that goes with them are the way forward, rather than competence cards that basically prove you can obtain a piece of plastic rather than prove that you can actually do the job. Apprenticeships, I think most of us believe, are the way forward. There's lots and lots of apprenticeship schemes talked about out there, but as we've mentioned in the past, I know of a couple of people in the very recent past who have been waiting to start an apprenticeship for 8 and 9 months. So there's lots of talk about apprenticeship schemes. Is there much in the way of action? Precisely the same issue that we have with mental health awareness. Lots and lots of talk about it. Is anyone doing anything about it? I'd love to get your thoughts. Love a good old Liebherr, great kit. Yeah, you and me both. Whoever that is watching on YouTube, thank you for being here. I can't read what that says, but I do appreciate you being here. It's always nice to see that the YouTube link is working correctly. And here is another of those great contradictions. Problem is, you can't teach a driver on site. So how do they learn unless you are on a farm where they can pick up some driving skills? I'm going to relate this specifically to Tier 1 contractors. They're not the only ones that are guilty here. Tier 1 contractors want operators that are trained to the highest possible degree. They want them to have the right bit of plastic. They want them to have the right bit of experience or the right level of experience. But God forbid that any of that training actually takes place on one of their sites. So whose sites are they supposed to take place on? If you want people to arrive on your site experienced, does that mean that you insist solely on workers that are 30 plus years of age? In which case that is inverse ageism, I would suggest. How are people supposed to learn if you will not allow them to learn? Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that anybody throws the keys to a high reach excavator on a demolition site to a 17-year-old and says, see that tower block there? Crack on, knock yourself out, or better still, don't knock yourself out, see how you get on. I'm not suggesting that for one moment. But it's like, how do you learn to drive without setting foot on a road, or setting tyre on a road? If we insisted tomorrow that all driver training, and I'm talking about car driver training here, took place in an abandoned Sainsbury's car park with no traffic lights, no pedestrians, no hazards, and then at the end of that we handed them a driving licence and said, crack on, go and drive up the M1 at 70 miles an hour, there would be public outcry. We do exactly that with operators. How does that make any sense whatsoever? Back on the movies, Die Hard is my favourite Christmas movie. There's a lot of votes for Die Hard here. Dan Cullen, there's a lot of votes for Home Alone as well. Let's have a look. Thank you, some reasonable people. Question of the day: It's a Wonderful Life, by far, by a country mile, the greatest Christmas movie of all time, in my opinion. Nick Drew, that's a good shout. I have to say, The Snowman for me. Loved watching it with my boys back in the day. Still love it now. Yeah, it is. It's very simple and it's great. And the very fact that David Bowie, God bless him, turns up in it as well. That's nothing to be sniffed at. And It's a Wonderful Life is great for anyone that's in a hole mentally. It really does put things into perspective. I watch it every Christmas and it always makes me cry. I watched it as a kid. I watched it as a young adult. So I'd probably seen it, I don't know, half a dozen times. And then I made the huge mistake of watching it on a transatlantic flight. I was flying over to Philadelphia at the time, and I watched it on the plane and was a blubbing mess. And I was that bad that one of the air stewardesses actually came over and said, "Is everything okay?" And all I could do was point at the screen. It's a wonderful life. Get you, trust me. Kinshofer in Germany offer a driving academy. Interesting. Learning everything from groundwork and digger work and all the requirements for looking after a machine. This is what needs to be done more. Kinshofer certainly aren't alone in that. Obviously, we've got people like Caterpillar have got their training centre over in Malaga. There's one in the States as well. JCB have got a very similar setup. Liebherr have got a similar setup. Volvo have got a very similar setup. But expecting, particularly, if you're a UK operator, is your employer going to pay for you to fly over to Germany or to Spain for a week to really learn the ropes? My guess is probably not. Let's have a look here. New operators should be L plates for the first 18 months, kept in line of sight of an experienced operator. That way, everyone else on site would know to keep an extra eye on them for everyone's safety. Fantastic idea. Totally agree with that. Neil Edwards is in the house. Morning, Neil. LinkedIn is playing up again. There's a shocker. If you just go to YouTube and look for Demolition News, all one word, you should be able to find it there. I've just looked at it and it is working, so if you would like to do that, I could picture that, Mark. Yeah, it doesn't take a lot for me to cry, frankly. What's the Iron Giant? Yeah, that'll get me every single time. If I listen to Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor when I'm in the wrong mood, that'll get me every time. Belfast Child by Simple Minds, if anyone remembers that. That's a guaranteed set of waterworks, that one. I have mentioned today the fact that my column for today is about suicide, and once again, it is, as I think I said at the top of the show, it is a mixture of sadness, anger, and complete outrage. Please go and take a look. And if it rings to you in any way, if it strikes a chord with you, if it strikes a chord with anyone that you work with, then please share it with them. If I were to have a campaign, if I could actually wave a magic wand, which I don't possess, but if I could wave a magic wand, if they made me king of demolition and construction for a day, the industry suicide rate would be my number one target. as I've said countless times, we get awfully excited about the fact that people trip over and twist their ankles. We get awfully excited that a dozen or more people fall off of buildings and kill themselves each year, which is terrible and tragic and should be avoided. But compare that to the 507 people that took, well, 507 people, 503 of which I think were men, that took their lives, their own lives in the industry in 2021. How can we, as an industry, as a supposedly professional industry, stand by and reckon and allow that to happen? Jim Turner showing his age. Dignity by Deacon Blue can choke me up sometimes. A ship called Dignity, eh? Deacon Blue. I went to see Deacon Blue many moons ago. Hammersmith. Very good they were too as well. Ricky Ross sang every bit as well live as he did on record, and Dignity, yeah, is a choker. Steve Williamson, digger driving is great, but it can become a lonely place and you can get your mind going on all sorts, especially if you're going through a tough time. It's not always all happy being a machinist. And I think that is one of the areas where there is this kind of shortcoming in the industry. Mental Health Awareness Day, Mental Health Awareness Week is all well and good, and I'm not suggesting for one moment that they should stop. I'm also not suggesting that people should walk away from mental health awareness, that people should stop being mental health first aiders. But having been down the path myself, mental health is something that is lurking in the background all of the time. And talking about it once a year or once in a blue moon isn't quite enough. We need to have a system in place where you could literally, I mean, as Steve has said there, digger driving is great. You do your, let's say you work from break time at 10 until 1 o'clock before you go and have a cup of tea. That time of a cup of tea and a cup of coffee should be a time where you should feel open enough to speak to a co-worker or a superior on the site and say, not feeling good today, can we have a chat? And unfortunately that does require us as men, predominantly men, to actually, I hate the term man up in terms of mental health, but man up in terms of actually having the balls to stand up and say, need a bit of help over here. If you think about, and this is where we are a bizarre breed, I think, if you were expected to lift a lump of timber, for example, that was too long and too heavy, you'd think nothing of calling over one of your mates and saying, give us a hand with this. And yet, if you're struggling mentally, that's probably the last thing that you're likely to do. You're more likely to keep that to yourself and just struggle on. I don't understand why there is a difference, but having done it myself, I know exactly what the case is. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think Steve has really summed it up there. I've been happily married for 30 plus years. I've got 4 children, all fit and healthy, 3 of whom still live at home. I consider them all friends. I have friends within the industry and without the industry. And on a couple of occasions where I've had my own mental health issues, I felt like the loneliest man alive. Felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to. I think part of it is not wanting to burden your loved ones with it, when in actual fact they are the perfect people to burden with it, because they're your nearest and dearest and probably would understand the background to it all. But I think we just need to learn to let go. And it's weird how these conversations go full circle, isn't it? You know, I've just mentioned the fact that I will sit on an aeroplane blubbing my eyes out at a film that's probably 70 odd years old now. And yet, would I go and speak to somebody, say, I'm having a really bad time of things at the moment? No, probably not. Even though I've been there a couple of times. Makes no sense whatsoever, does it? Travelling with co-workers seems to be time conversations get deepest when things are turning crap for folk. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was one of the issues that was thrown up in the midst of the COVID crisis. I remember speaking to one of the principals at a demolition company up in the Midlands. And he said for years he had been teaching his teams and his crews to try wherever possible to travel together. predominantly to keep the cost of petrol and diesel down. So if you can go 4 up in a van rather than 1 up in a van, then you've saved 3 lots of petrol, 3 lots of diesel. But also for that chatting time. COVID came around, and all of his drivers were encouraged to drive independently. So all of a sudden, you've gone from having that opportunity to have a chat with your mates and possibly get a few things off your chest before you start work or on your way home from work. And then that was taken away from us, as was so much else during the COVID lockdown. But again, I've tried to say it in the article that I've published today, the biggest issue that we have here is we're addressing the symptoms and not the cause. The cause of a lot of this is things like financial security, being away from friends, family, loved ones for prolonged periods of time. I wrote an article many moons ago, probably a good 10 years ago, about an occupational nurse working within the demolition industry who had been on site basically checking health and well-being of people, and this was physical health. And she was turning up things like advanced diabetes, heart disease, hearing problems, people with teeth that were literally sort of rotting in their head, and an awful lot of that was down to the fact that in this industry, for a lot of people, if you're not working, you're not earning, and therefore you work through the pain and the discomfort, for one thing, but also the fact that a lot of these people are working away from home and away from their dentist, their GP, so the ability to actually go and get a heart check, a blood pressure check, a diabetes check is kind of taken away from them. And what does that mean? Do you have to drop dead on site before somebody realises actually they were pretty poorly? I thought they were moving a little slower than usual. And exactly the same rules apply with mental health awareness. To be able to go home and download to actual friends, not work friends, but actual friends or family or relatives or whatever it might be, I think that's something that we shouldn't be overlooking. But again, I go back to exactly what I said in the article today. We've got companies now that once, twice, maybe several times a year will leap onto social media to talk about their commitment to mental health, but they are still forcing their people to work away from home. They're still offering no job security. They've got a lot of people on 0-hour contracts, so they can be dropped at a moment's notice. They can be off-hired at a moment's notice. And unfortunately, that sort of thing, as we said last week, seems to happen around about this time of the year. And if you're, I said a young guy, but if you're any guy, but particularly a young guy, if you're, imagine today, what is today? It's the 5th of December. We're 20 days away from Christmas. There could well be people today, tomorrow, Friday this week, who are handed their papers at the end of the week and said, that's it, you're done, no work again until the new year. How do you go home and explain that to your good lady and to your family that Christmas is basically cancelled because you personally have just been cancelled by an uncaring employer? And I understand the economic pressures on employers. I do realise that people do need to be laid off from time to time. I realise they have to balance the books and juggle finance themselves. But at the end of the day, we hear lots and lots of talk about from the industry about the fact that they believe their workers are their greatest asset. If that were the case, why would you treat your greatest asset with such disregard and disrespect? And that again goes back to everything I've been saying in that column. And again, as Aaron said in the PSRO video, I think one of the issues is the fact that we have the same people sat around the same tables, by and large, saying the same things over and over again. And they're ticking a box that says, are we mental health aware? Yes, because we just had a meeting in which we discussed mental health awareness. Have we done anything about it? Not so much, but we have ticked the box that we are aware. And the analogy that I draw in today's article, or today's column, is if you are on a demolition or a construction site and you find an open manhole, do you cover up that manhole, either find the manhole cover or put something over it to prevent people from falling down it, or do you post on your LinkedIn profile the fact that you're manhole aware? Really is as simple as that. Are you manhole aware? And if you are, did you prevent anyone falling down that manhole and injuring or possibly killing themselves? No, you didn't. Without getting too morose on a Monday, that will do us for today. I'm going to love you and leave you. Back here again on Wednesday. Please don't forget, I won't be here tomorrow. A pretty big meeting tomorrow, actually. I'll tell you about it when it all comes, if it all comes to fruition. But as I say, I won't be here tomorrow. So if you are looking for more of this, then please tune in again on Wednesday, when I will have precisely that, more of the same. We've also got a couple of new videos about to drop over on YouTube, both of them featuring our friends at Cymex. Did a couple of interviews over at Bauma, and we've now got those through the editing process. Both of them pretty long videos. I think they're about 10-12 minutes each. So if you are bored tomorrow, just head on over to our YouTube channel, where we now have more than 18,000 subscribers. 18,000. I was celebrating the fact that we passed 10,000 about, I don't know, 2 months ago, and yet we're close on doubling that. We will hit 20,000 subscribers on YouTube before we get to Christmas. Jim Turner is back. Tutorvan seems to be best for people opening up about themselves. It must be one of those people that folk like unloading their troubles onto. A lot of it stems from drink and drug abuse, on not being to keep their cocks out of other women, and getting caught. There is a fair, yeah, and again, working away from home, and I'm not suggesting that working away from home necessarily constitutes playing away from home, but if you're away from home and you are lonely and feeling isolated, you will seek a crutch, and that crutch might be drink, it might be drugs, it might not be crutch, it might be crotch, I guess, without wishing to get overly graphic. And all of those are a downward path. The industry just needs to take a big step back and look at how we allocate work. And just as an example, right, this is, just before I do sign off for the day, this is an example of how crazy the situation in the industry is. And this isn't actually demolition or construction workers. I know a couple of guys that work in the training sphere, and one of them is based down in Cornwall, and the other one is based up in the Midlands. And a couple of years ago, the one in the Midlands was sent to do some training in Cornwall, and the one in Cornwall was sent on the same day to do the same course in the Midlands. And it was only because the two guys knew each other and were speaking to each other on the phone. Where are you today? Oh, well, I'm on my way from Devon to Wolverhampton. Well, that's weird, because I'm on my way from Wolverhampton to Cornwall. Somebody could go on to my Calendly profile now, and they could set an appointment with me, which will recognize where I am, when I am, on my Google Calendar, which I have to keep up to date, or I'll end up entirely lost. Why is that not in? It may well be by now, but why was that not in use back in the days of the two trainers who probably passed somewhere on the M5? And if you've got that at that level, have you got the same thing at a higher level with the actual workers themselves? You know, if you've got London workers going to work in Scotland and Scottish workers for the same company coming down to do the work on a London demolition job, think about it. Think about it from a mental health standpoint. Think about it from an environmental standpoint. Think about it from a financial standpoint. Does it make any sense for somebody to come from Scotland to work in London when you've actually got people in London already? Probably not. Think about it. That'll do. I've already said goodbye once, but I'm going to say it again. I'll be back on Wednesday for more of the same. And as I say, if you are bored tomorrow, hop on over to YouTube. We've got a couple of Cymex videos for you to watch over there. I'm going to make those public in just a moment. Please try and check out my article today. You can find it over on demolitionnews.com. It is called A Stain Upon the Industry, which I believe it is. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. Till then, have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you very soon. All the best.